no more atrocious than what I am about to talk about. The main event of this show was an Alexa's Playground segment. That was the main event of this show. And I will go through this because I know a lot of you don't even watch this show anymore. Alexa is in the ring, on her swing, talking to her doll, Lilly. Shayna Baszler comes out and knocks over Alexa's toy horse, her little horsey. Bliss wanted Shayna to apologize to Lilly. And Shayna blamed Alexa for her and Nia Jax no longer being the women's tag team champions. She should be thanking Alexa for that, not yelling at her. Shayna grabbed Lilly. She grabbed the doll and she began to talk to it. I'm sorry. She's apologizing to the doll. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're just a stupid doll. And this angered Bliss, who attacked Baszler. Baszler then sent Alexa out to the floor. And as if this wasn't all ridiculous enough, we make movies in this company. Remember that? They have these dramatic camera cuts. One from the doll's point of view, looking up at Shayna, who had her foot on the doll, and she proceeds to stomp on the doll. And that is when all the voodoo magic began. The lights began to flicker. Shayna fled to the she fled from the ring up the aisleway. Flames began to shoot up from both sides of the ramp. And Shayna ran to the back. And the cameras followed her. They were playing spooky music. This was their version of a horror movie. I don't know why this was needed. They already produce a 3-hour horror movie every Monday night. Shayna was acting terrified, trying to find refuge in one of the rooms backstage. There was nobody else around, by the way. Everybody had left for the night, I guess. It's like these movies sometimes where somebody is being chased in a hospital and there's nobody else around. It's like, what kind of hospital is this? There's nobody around? You've got to suspend your disbelief quite a bit. But she's, just looking for some safe haven. Here in the back. She barricades herself into a room, only to turn around and find the doll is reflected in the mirror. And she turns around, no doll. Turns back around, and there's the doll again in the mirror. So she kicks the mirror and she shatters it, condemning herself to 7 more years of bad booking. But the doll can still be seen reflected in the shattered glass. And they fade to black, and the last thing we hear was Shayna Baszler screaming. She probably wakes up in a cold sweat every Monday morning, screaming like that, when she remembers that they have Raw that night. Oh God, what have they written for me now? If you would have told me that Shayna Baszler would be featured in multiple weeks of Raw main events, I would have said, hey, that's great. That's great news if you're a fan of Shayna Baszler. But if I told you what she would be doing in those main events, you would have told me I'm not supposed to fill my bong up with bleach before using it. That's not how it works. Now, I'm a horror fan. I've watched plenty of movies with killer dolls. At no point did I find myself wanting Chucky or Annabelle to start doing dives and rolling up their victims. I have a certain level of tolerance for stupid shit on my wrestling shows. When Papa Shango started setting jobbers' feet on fire as a 10-year-old, that kind of freaked me out. Ultimate Warrior vomiting up split pea soup, that was dumb even back then. When Kane summoned a lightning bolt and set one of the crew members on fire, that was a cool moment. And it was a one-time deal, we never saw him do it again. Kane was also an ass-kicking machine who could back it up in the ring. Nobody's going to make fun of Kane, not back then. Same with Undertaker. When The Fiend first debuted, I loved those Funhouse Brace skits. You could argue that he was just a guy that went off the deep end, he lost his mind, and that somehow made him more dangerous and more sinister. When The Fiend made that first entrance, that was the coolest thing on that SummerSlam show. But everything has a shelf life. Nothing lasts forever. The Fiend was bungled and has not been the same since. And now, Alexa Bliss has taken over, basically, as the new Fiend. The Fiend now sits down to pee instead of standing up. And kudos to Alexa Bliss on her character work. She has done as good a job with it as you can ask for. But everything has a shelf life. Demonic bliss in small doses would have been fine until she eventually snaps out of her trance. Instead, they have leaned into it even more, and every week it just gets worse and worse and worse. We are now going on a year. 1 full year of this. And Bray Wyatt, nowhere to be found. You know what? I'm okay with that. He shouldn't be on television every week anyway. Small doses. It's like a drug, right? You don't want to take heavy doses. Small doses. That character is best saved for when they actually have something for him to do. Mike Johnson of PW Insider says that they've been keeping him hidden away on purpose. I can only imagine for some kind of grand reappearance where maybe he breaks the spell and we get the old Alexa Bliss back. July 16th cannot get here soon enough. July 16th is when WWE gets back on the road. It gets back on the road in front of live crowds, and I refuse to believe that those live crowds are going to be any nicer to this than I am. Unless I have just completely lost the plot on this, and hey, maybe I have. Maybe this is the kind of stuff that people are into these days and it has passed me by. All 1.6 million of these people every Monday are into this kind of stuff. The numbers certainly don't bear this out. And if these are the kinds of Raw main events they plan on giving people next month, these people are in for a rude awakening. If fans want to pay for a ticket to see a scary movie, they'll go to the multiplex. Monday Night Raw has never been more embarrassing than it is today. And I watched an old lady give birth to a fucking hand. But at least she didn't come back the next week and pop out another one and another and another. Week after week after week.